Hey y'all. Hey y'all. We made it. We made it. We made it to the new year, y'all. We made it to 2025. I knew we would. I'm so excited. Aren't y'all excited about what's to come, man? Listen. We don't want to get so caught up in 2025, right? When we don't enjoy today, right? Of 2025, January, the beginning of 2025. And so, man, God has really been dealing with me with a lot of different things, right? And I just wanted to get on here, man, on today and remind somebody today that his promises are still yes and amen. His promises for your life are still yes and amen. Okay. Um, I'm excited about that because listen, God has really God has really been on me as of lately. Like I have literally given you promises. But as of lately, right? What have you been doing with these promises that I have for you? What have you been doing not just with the promises that I have for you, but what have you been doing with the word that I've given you? Are you so caught up in the world, right? That you are losing hope, right? That the promise is not going to be fulfilled? Or are you still standing firm on my word because you know that if I did it before you, if I did it for you before, I can do it again, right? And so, y'all, listen, that thing hit me like a ton of bricks, y'all. And so, if you look at the title of this thing, right, you will see that I titled it, God Doesn't Need Our Help. God doesn't need our help to fulfill the promises. He don't need our help. Did y'all hear what I just said? God does not need our help. He doesn't need me and your help to fulfill the promise. If he gave you something, right, he does not need your help to fulfill it. Just all you're supposed to do is trust that it's going to happen. And you trust and you show him that you trust him, right? By the way that you live, by the way of you not throwing in that towel, by you holding on to hope, right? And just knowing that God is going to work this thing out. You don't know how it's going to happen, but you know it's going to happen because you've been putting in that work. You've been showing him that he could trust you with the promise and that you can trust that he can trust you with his word. Y'all, I'm so excited about this thing, y'all. This thing is just this thing just is all up it's all up in me. Um because when I think about 2025 and I think about just a year coming to an end and then a beginning, right? I think that a lot of times, right, we get so focused on it's a new me, it's going to be a new year, right? So it's going to be a new me, new perspective, new fresh start, right? A lot of people are hitting the gym, right? People that hadn't even been in the gym since the last year that they made this resolution, right? And so what I'm realizing more and more is that we can make our plans, right? And there's nothing wrong with you. I'm not hating on nobody to say that this is what you're gonna do. And sometimes, right, we remain consistent, and some people we just don't. We started, right? We put ourselves in these memberships and we put ourselves in these contracts, and then all of a sudden we find ourselves literally month after month, right? We do good for the first month, the second month comes, the third month comes, and we just done with it at that point, right? So then we begin to find ourselves paying for something that is unnecessary, right? And so, what if God told you that something was guaranteed? What if God told you that my life for you, right? And what I have for you, right? If you were to do just this one thing for me, which is just trust me, what you're believing me for, I can do for you, right? All I need for you to do is work this thing out, right? All I need for you to do is just work this thing out. And when I say work this thing out, I mean, trust me, activate your faith, show me that you're ready for this, right? And so the thing about it is, right, is that it shouldn't have to take a new year for us to get that mindset, right? And so I don't know about y'all, but listen, 2024 was coming to an end. And I began to get in that mindset already, right? Because listen, I'm gonna tell you what, I'm believing God for a lot of different things, right? But it's not just for me that I'm believing him for those things. I'm believing him for these things for other people to be delivered. I'm believing him for these things because there's people that are dependent on the God in me to help free, right? To help free them from bondage, right? It's some people that's literally out here that's waiting on Toya, the God in Toya, to come and cross paths with them, right? So they can be made whole. Listen, I tell you what, sometimes in life, right, we get so distracted, because we want the things of the world. We want to obtain these things. We feel like we have timelines. We feel like we have all of these things that we want to do, right? And there's nothing wrong with those things. But what is it that God has showed you? What is it that God has put on the inside of you, right? To help really nurture what it is that He's been trying to draw out of you and to pull out of you. What are those gifts that God has for you, right? To help fulfill the purpose. Because each and every single one of us, guess what? We got a purpose. We have a purpose, right? And so I know that some of this purpose, right, that God has for me is to live for Him. And even though sometimes I get in my own way by sinning, right? Because sin at the end of the day, right? Sometimes sin just feels good. It feels like it's the right thing to do. But I'm unlearning those habits, right? Sidebar, that was a real thing, right? Because I know I can speak on that thing because I'm not perfect, but I'm trying my hardest to live up to what it is that God wants me to live up to, right? Because He came and He gave us the example. And so the reality is that God, I want your will to be done in my life. God, I want what it is that you have for me to have, right? But I just keep trying to take matters into my own hands. So listen. This story blessed me on this week. Like it literally had blessed me. And I end up sharing some of my testimony about the promise of this house because God had really unctioned me to do it on the 29th. Because listen, it's been a whole year since I've literally been a home owner of a new construction home. Like I got to build my home. If you haven't heard that testimony, please check out my Facebook page. The Glow Up it is available, it's public. And it will bless you because when I looked at it again, man, I could not stop tearing up because I know that God had literally fulfilled that promise for me, right? But sometimes in life, right, what God will do is He will begin to show you that that is just one of the promises that I have for you. But because you were obedient with me, right, and to me, right, and you took that leap of faith and that promise came into, that means that there's more promises that's connected to the first promise that I promised you. Listen, y'all, listen, because God took me out of Richmond, Virginia, uprooted me from everything that I was familiar with, right? And took me into a new land. Listen, y'all got to read book of Genesis chapter 16. Y'all got to read Genesis 16 on your own leisure. But listen. God had already told Abraham that and Sarah that they were going to have a kid, right? That their kid was going to be the promised son, right? Their kid and Abraham, I thought it was so dope how God told Abraham to be able to look up into the sky, right? Can you even count the stars? These are your descendants, Abraham. Like you can't even count how many of these the descendants that you're going to have, right? That are going to come through your lineage, that are going to be a part of what it is that I have for you, that are going to be a part of the promise because you decided to obey me. You decided to take yourself out of comfortable, right? You don't even know exactly what's going to happen. You have no idea where I'm taking you to, but you trust that I have your best interest at heart. Listen, I don't even know too many people that's even going to try to make sense out of that. Like, you want me to do what? You want me to go where? You want me to do what? Oh my gosh. And then it was crazy too, right? And if you really want to go back into the book of Genesis, right? Go back into the book of Genesis, chapter 15. Like read before that, right? And you'll also begin to learn a little bit more about Abraham and Sarah's journey. I am so inspired by that just in itself because what it gave me is that I knew that God had been calling me to go, right? And sometimes, right, we can take matters in our own hands because that's what we do. We do that. Like we take matters into our own hands. Um, and so Abraham and Sarah, they had been trying, right? For a kid. And so Sarah just got fed up one day and was like, look, listen, it ain't happening. It's not happening. It's listen, we keep doing this thing. It is not happening. I can only imagine, right? Because at this point, she's probably just irritated at this point. Like, look, listen, first it started out with just us just having pleasure while we making this baby, right? We start making love. Now it's just a job. Now we just doing this thing. And it still ain't happening. Like, it don't matter what we do. It don't matter how we do it. It's just not happening. Like, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's me. I don't know. But guess what? We can do. And here's her plan, right? She's like, you know what? Why don't we take the maidservant, right? Because the maidservant belongs to me anyway. She's mine, right? I'm her boss. She's gonna listen to me. So why don't you just go ahead and lay with her? Because if you lay with her, it's just like you having sex with me, right? And at the end of the day, right, it'll be our kid. I can raise it like our kid. That could be our kid, you know. But what God, what God ended up doing, right, is He allowed Ishmael to come, right? And I can only imagine, how that made her feel, all in reality. Is that now she is feeling like, I'm this man's wife. I can't even get pregnant because we doing it in all kinds of ways and ain't nothing happening. We didn't even try to enjoy ourselves. It still ain't happening. Ain't nothing lashing. Ain't nothing. The egg is still ain't nothing happening. So you mean to tell me I tell him to go sleep with her, my maid servant Hagar, right? And now that I done told him to sleep with her, now she get pregnant. What's up with that? How? How, Sway? This ain't right. But what happened was, right, is that I can only imagine, you know, after seeing all of this thing, right? Because the thing is like in her mind, she probably was like, you know what, this could be our child. But realistically, she didn't think about how that was really going to affect her. She didn't even, I don't even think that she even realized how it was going to even affect Abraham, nor how it's going to also affect the many nations, right? Because when God gives you a promise, you don't have to figure it out. God does not need your help to fulfill the promise. He didn't need Sarah's help. He didn't need her help to fulfill what he had already promised them. He didn't need her help. But she decided to go ahead and give it anyways and took matters to her own hands. And now she has to deal with the consequences of her actions because she decided to put her hand on something that didn't even necessarily, right? That she didn't even need to put her hands in. See, this is the thing, right? Sometimes we get tired of waiting because it's not happening the way that we want it to happen. Or maybe it's not even just that it's not happening the way that we want it to happen, right? It's just not happening. And so now you feel like, you know what? I got to take matters into my own hands. I got to do something. Let me help God out. And that's exactly what she did. But she had the consequences of it because now here's this little boy that looks probably just like his dad, looks just like her husband. And it didn't actually come from her. She wasn't the one who actually carried it. It's not her actual blood, right? She's not the one that's actually carrying the son that her husband wants and desires, right? And so the thing about it is, man, is that we as a people, we have to make sure that we're taking our time to understand what it is that God is trying to show us, right? Because if God said it, then it's going to happen. We have to trust that God is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do, regardless of the naysayers, regardless of the people that got something to say. Because guess what? People got something to say, whether if you're doing good or bad. Man, listen, I don't care what nobody says or thinks about what it is that God has called me. Because listen, it's beautiful when you begin to live this thing. When you begin to say, you know what, God, I trust you. God, I don't want to put my hands in it. God, I'm tired of doing things my way. I want your will, not my will. God, I just want it how you see fit. God, I don't want to put myself in the way or delay what it is that you have for me. I know that it's not no, but I feel like in a way, God, you need my help. And God is, I don't need your help. All I need you to do is continue to show me that you trust me with this thing. I told you that I have a promise for you. And so, y'all, listen, I'm saying this because at the end of the day, I know what it's like to live it. I know what it's like to live it. God gave me a home, y'all. Listen, in Charlotte, North Carolina, he was calling me up he was literally calling me up out of Richmond, Virginia, literally, right? When I graduated from college. He called me up out of there. But here I am all uncomfortable. And I'm like, oh, I got to stay here because my family needs me. Right. And my family didn't necessarily need me at the time. You know what I'm saying? I was just so comfortable where I was, right? That the reality is that I stayed. So I began to make excuses, right? I had me an apartment. Then I was like, okay, well, I can get out of the apartment. And then, got into the house, and then when I got into the house, it was just like, okay, I'm here, I'm in the house, right? but the house wasn't supposed to be in Richmond, Virginia, but God still gave me grace through it. And that's one thing that I can say, that I'm grateful for it. I'm so grateful for that, right? But it was necessary for me to go through that. And I'm thankful that he gave me his grace, that his grace did not run out and it was sufficient for my life in that season. Because what he ended up doing was he ended up, even in the middle of me trying to help God fulfill the promise, right? He still allowed me to be able to sell that home, right? And at the appropriate time, right? Because you got to trust his time. His timing is so perfect. He always has a way of doing things. Y'all, he got me one of the best realtors here in North Carolina, South Carolina, realtor, Miriam Pearson. Shout out to her. I'm telling you, this lady didn't even know who I was, right? But I knew that she knew God. And because she knew God and her faith level was just like my faith level, because even in moments where I felt like I wanted to throw in the towel, she would not let me throw in the towel. This is how I know when God's hand is in something and God has promised you something and he's told you yes. You do not go against that. You hold on to his yes, because this is exactly what it is that he wants to see. He wants to see, when things look crazy, are you still going to trust me? Y'all, people literally were calling me. I had friends that I've been knowing for years literally call me and tell me, are you looking at the interest rates? Do you see this is happening? Do you see what is happening here? Do you see this is that? It was just so many things, y'all. And it was just coming at me, coming at me, coming at me. But I was constantly reminded that if God did it for Abraham and Sarah, God says, I could do the same thing for you. Y'all, that thing blessed me all the way in my shanana. Do y'all hear me? Because the thing is that what God was showing me even more, he was saying that, my daughter, you trusted me. You didn't listen to what man said, because if I listened to what man said, y'all, I wouldn't even be in Charlotte, North Carolina right now. But see, what God was doing was he says, I have to take you from familiar land. I'm going to take you out of familiar, right? I'm going to take you out from everything that you've ever known, right? And what I want to do is I want to create a new lineage through you. I want to break generational curses through you, in your finances, right? In the bloodline. You get what I'm saying? Because the thing is, God says, I have to separate you. I've called you up out of there. And it's not that you think that you're better than anybody, because I don't, right? And it don't even matter what other people think. I could care less, right? Because God called me here. And because he called me here and he planted me here, right? God is like, listen, I'm giving you more, but I'm giving you people that are going to love you. I'm going to give you like-minded people. I'm going to position you in such a way, y'all. Listen, and the career is coming next. The career is coming next. I'm trusting it because this is a part of the promise that he's promised me. Listen, when you trust God and you take that leap of faith, man, and you start showing him that you trust him by your actions. You start showing him that you trust him and his will for your life. Whoo, he come through every single time. Every single time. And I know this because he hasn't failed me yet. And he won't ever fail me. It's been times, y'all, where I've literally wanted to give up and said, you know what, I'm done with this thing. I trusted God even with this podcast. Even with this podcast, I had to trust God. Because I didn't even know whether or not, I'm like, you know what, God, I've been making excuses for this podcast for a long time. And then something got an inside of me and I was like, okay, I'm trying to do things the way that I want to do them. Because when I started out with this thing, right, with the glow up is, right, God had been telling me, like, listen, I want you to talk to people. I want you to listen to people. I want you to be able to do all of these different things, right? But what I didn't understand, I didn't sit there long enough to get the instructions on how I needed to construct this thing, on how he wanted it to come, because it looked like I thought that it was like a life coach thing, right? And so here I go. I'm like, okay, let me go get certified for this. Let me go do this. And he was like, wait a minute, time out. You're going to overwhelm yourself because I didn't call you for that right now. I didn't call you to be a life coach, and what you think is working for everybody else, it don't necessarily mean that that's going to work for you, Toya. I'm calling you out into a new territory. But what I need for you to do is I need for you to create this podcast. I need for you to be intentional with your YouTube channel. I need you to be intentional with sharing it, right? Because in the beginning, for me, I was like, man, I ain't sharing it. I'm gonna just let people, whoever need to see it, they need to see it, right? I'm literally in my own way, right? And I'm trying to fulfill it the way that I need to fulfill the promise, right? And God says, you're not the one who gave the promise. You're not the one who I gave. Like, I I gave you the promise. This ain't your promise to fulfill. It's mine. So the thing about God, man, God will humble you real quick. He will begin to show you exactly who you are and where you at. Okay? Because listen, the enemy wants you to stay where you at. He wants you to be scared. He wants you to be familiar. He wants you to be comfortable, right? And it's crazy, but man, listen, sometimes you just got to do it scared. Sometimes you just got to do it scared. Listen, I'm gonna tell you what. It's nothing wrong, right? With you wanting to have your ducks in a row. It's nothing wrong with that because I am that person. I like to have my ducks in a row, I like ABCD. But God don't work like that. Sometimes God is like OZKA. Okay, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4, right? It's 5, 1, 2, 7, all out of order. But the thing about it is that if everything just made sense and he really literally cleared everything with you, right, you wouldn't necessarily need him. And this is the reason why we need God. This is the reason why we got to make sure that we're staying in covenant with God. Because the thing is like God is going to do exactly what he said he's going to do. Whatever he's revealed to you, he's going to do that. We just have to trust that he's going to do it. And a lot of times, because the world says that this is happening, right? We take that, right? We see the news, we see the news reports, we see all of these different things working and not working, and we see all of the bad things, right? And sometimes the bad things can really mess with our minds. And y'all, I don't know about y'all, but listen, I can't watch the news all the time. Sometimes for me, the news is just very depressing, and I just got to cut it off. You know what I'm saying? I just literally go into prayer mode for God's people. Because at the end of the day, I can't do nothing but trust God. I can't do nothing but trust that and know that it's going to still work out for our good. Because I'm like, God, you got a promise. You got some more promises that got to be fulfilled. So I'm not worried about what the economy looks like. I ain't worried about the people talking about war. We talking about all of these different things, man. And I'm just like, God, whatever way you see fit, however way you see fit. Like it ain't meant for me to. I know that this side of me being on this earth is not meant for me to be here long. Anyways, right? We all got an expiration date. We don't know when we going. But I'm gonna make the best out of this while I'm here, and I'm gonna do your will while I'm here, right? I'm gonna embrace the promises that you have for my life. I'm gonna embrace them. I am, because this is where you called me to, right? And so it's only a matter of time when God can say, okay, I'm uprooting you, and you know that your lineage is going to begin here in Charlotte, North Carolina, because I separated you from Virginia, right? And what was the past? Because now it's in the present moment as to what you're going to do that's going to affect what's going to happen here in the promise. But your story, your book has already been written. It's just a matter of you going through the pages, right? And allowing it to truly unfold. Like God already knows exactly what it is that he has for your life. Like I'm literally sat here and I'm like, God, you really truly blessed me with a house in Charlotte, North Carolina. Like a brand new legit house. God says I wouldn't have had it any other way. You were looking for a used home. You were looking for a home that already had been occupied before in the past. And God says, I didn't want you to start in that way. I wanted you already to be prepared already for what it is that I was receiving you, because what he was doing was, before I had even gotten here, he was already changing my mindset. He had already given me a new perspective, right? He was changing me, right? And it's crazy because if you go back into old videos, you'll see that my hair was different. I didn't have locks at first. Like God did a whole complete 360 on me. And he said, I don't even want you to look like what you've been through. I don't even want you to look like what you used to. Some of the people that you call family ain't even going to recognize you, ain't even going to know you, and they not supposed to. You see what I'm saying? Because they know you as Toya, but I know who you are because I knew you before you were in your mother's womb. I knew you. You were mine before you were hers. And before you even got into that family, that earthly family of yours, you were mine. You were my family. You belong to me. And at the end of the day, listen, your mom, your dad, your sister, your brother, your cousins, right? Your aunts, your uncles, none of them can answer for you at the end of the day. It's just going to be me and you. And it's what you do for me, Toya, that is going to last. So yes, I'm calling you higher. Yes, I'm taking you up out of Richmond, Virginia, and I'm going to put you in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I'm going to send you people. I'm going to give you a new career. Yep, because the career is coming. The career is coming because it's all connected. It's connected to the original promise. It's connected to the house. The house is connected to the career. The career is connected to the husband. The husband is connected to the kids. Every single thing, every single promise, every single thing that I've promised you, and I don't need you to get worried or wrapped up in your timelines, okay? Get out your own head. Forget about what the doctors say, right? Because this is what we do. We try to make things, we try to understand. We try to make ourselves understand. And God says, I didn't call you to understand this moment. There is a season, right? That is silent. There is a such thing as a silent season. Sometimes it will feel like God is not even there. I tell you this because I know, because I'm living it. And I'm literally begging and I'm literally pleading and I'm literally crying out to God. God, I need you. God, I need for you to show me exactly what it is that you want me to do. God, I know that you've promised me these things, and I know that you promised me your purpose to be fulfilled in my life. However, I'm wrestling with Toya. I'm wrestling with my timelines. I'm wrestling with my health right now, God. I don't know what's going on with my health. God, I don't know exactly when am I supposed to get this husband? When am I supposed to make sure that when am I gonna be a mom? When am I gonna be doing all of these things, right? And then it hit me like a ton of bricks, y'all. Like the crazy thing about it is it was like, well, what about me first? Are you serving me? Are you giving me you, all of you, right? So I can position you and put you in the right place. And then the reality is, right, is that even in that silent season, we have to reflect. We have to reflect on what it is that God has already done for us. And even if God was to be like, you know what, I'm going to take you up out of here now. And, you're just not going to live this earthly life anymore, right? I will say, you know what, God, I did what I could with the time that you gave me. And I thank you for that, right? But I know what God has called me to, right? So he's called me to Charlotte, and I know that he's going to get me through this. He's going to get me through this thing. Y'all, we wrestle with that flesh we wrestle with that flesh so much sometimes, right? Because we want what we want, and our emotions sometimes can get the best out of us because we try to relate, right? And everything that everything is not meant for you to relate to. Like, y'all, I need for y'all to understand that. And that thing blessed me because what I had to realize is that, sometimes I just need to shut up. Sometimes I got to just keep quiet on some things, right? Because if you continue to share, then you're not leaving anything. You're not leaving anything open, right? Write it down. And I know that, in New Year, right, people like vision boards and people like all of those type of things. But for me, right, like I don't mind doing a vision board, right? And I usually do it. Like if I do it, sometimes I used to do it with groups, right? Like a group of people. And for me, it's just meant for those people that are around me. That's not something that I broadcast, right? Because for me, I'm like, man, I'm going to write this down and I'm believing that God is going to do these things, right? Because it's not just about me. Like I'm always constantly thinking about, okay, God, if I'm asking you for something, it's not just for me to be selfish with, right? I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to bless others, right? With what it is and the promises that you've given me. Like even to my career, I want to be able to open up doors for other people who even look like me, right? I want to be able to afford them the opportunity, right? To be able to do something different, right? If they have a desire to. Even to my husband, like I want even in our union, right? To be an example for other people as to really what love really looks like, right? To know that even at your age, right? You don't have to settle for just anybody, right? Because you just want to be like everybody else when you were made to stand out, right? I want the kids that I have, right? to really be examples of God's love, right? I want them to really be able to succeed in this world, right? And I want them to know that they're not of this world, that God has you, that God is your source. And so the thing about it is, man, is that when I think about those things and I think about all of the different effects on how life can happen, right? And all of the different effects in the relationships that we build, right? And the living lights that we have and that we can become. And I'm talking about the promises that God has already promised me, right? Is that at the end of the day, it's for his glory. It's for his glory. Y'all, listen, God don't need our help to fulfill these promises. He doesn't. He doesn't need our help. So I challenge you, man, to just truly trust him. Truly show God that it's okay. Like, God, I know that you got my back. I know that you're going to do it in your time. I trust and know that, regardless of whatever it is that I'm going through, regardless of the health, the health issues, regardless of, me not being able to have the money to pay the next mortgage, right? Or, maybe my bills and stuff. Maybe I got a unexpected bill that came and now, I don't even have enough to pay it. God, I'm just trusting that you're going to be able to make a way for me to even be able to make maybe payment arrangements. I don't know. We don't know how God is going to solve this thing because sometimes we just expect for God to just solve it and just to do it, right? But God always makes a way. And I challenge you to just trust him with that. I challenge you to start believing because every single one of us that has given our life over to God, we have the faith of a mustard seed. We have the faith of a mustard seed. And that's like the tiniest man. I wish I had me an example of the mustard seed. I don't think I even had no more mustard seeds. But it's so tiny, right? And my thing is like if we can move mountains with that, can you imagine like God multiplying your faith and adding more and more to your faith, right? And it's levels to this thing. I don't know about y'all, but I don't want to stay at the next level. I don't want to stay at this current level that I'm at. I want more and more levels. I want to go higher and higher. God, I want you to take me higher, higher, higher. Because the higher that I go, God goes. I'm not forgetting about God. I cannot turn my back on God. Listen, I am I am who I am because of God. Even when it makes other people uncomfortable, even if people got something to say, it don't even matter. Listen, I'm done. I'm done trying to help God fulfill the promises. I don't know which way I'm going. Listen, I think I was talking to one of my friends recently, and I was sharing with him and her. I was sharing with them. I was like, I said passenger princess, right? And one of my friends, she holds on to that, right? She reminds me all the time, you're passenger princess. So every time that sometimes when she says it, I'm like, oh, I'm getting convicted on that thing because right now I ain't passenger princess. I'm literally out here trying to drive. I'm literally out here trying to drive, trying to be the driver. But in these last couple of months, right, I've literally been intentional with being passenger princess, literally being passenger princess and enjoying the ride. Because what I don't know, right, I don't know which way to go, right? God does. He knows the right turns. He knows the right time. He knows the detours. He knows whether or not if he knows, right? I don't even know what the weather looks like, right? But he knows how to drive in the snow. He knows how to drive in the fog, right? I don't have to do anything but just sit there and just ride. That is all. I don't have to worry about my anxiety. I don't have to worry about being overwhelmed because God has me, right? It's me just taking comfort in who he is to me, right? I don't know who he is to you, but taking comfort into just knowing that, you know what? If we got to make a stop to get a snack because he feels like we need energy or Toya needs energy at this moment, then that's what we're going to do, right? But it's no exits until he sees fit that it's an exit. Like I'm rocking with God every single time. I'm not doing it. I'm just not doing it. So I'm thankful because he is who he is. He's just the I am. And that for me, I wanted to get on here, man, just to encourage somebody because listen, if he can do it for me, he can definitely do it for you. But we just got to get out of our comfort. We got to get out of trying to help God fulfill the promise. Like all we're doing is delaying it. All we're doing is is getting in our own heads, and next thing you know, we got anxiety and we become overwhelmed over something that God didn't even call us to do. Like we get so wrapped up in our emotions because we don't know how to wait. We don't know how to trust him. Like, you trust him while you're waiting. Like, even though you're waiting, it doesn't necessarily mean that your life stops. And we just gotta just go ahead, and sometimes we just gotta talk to ourselves. I don't know about y'all, but listen, I have like two, three, four people in my head that be talking to me sometimes. And I just have to be like, look, silence the voices in my head. Because if I don't silence the voices in my head, which is fear, right? Yes, sis, yes, the doubt. Yep, it can be, yep, doubt and the fear. It can be things that begin to talk you about it. And then you also got to be mindful too of who you talking to. Who are your friends, right? Who are you connected to that maybe is trying to talk to you about something that God has called you to, or God trying to call you about of, but you keep talking or entertaining relationships that you know that you've outgrown, right? Because spiritually you've outgrown them, but yet at the same time you still trying to make it work. But anyways, I digress. I'm thankful. I'm just thankful for God's grace, thankful for His mercy. Um, and I'm gonna be praying for y'all, just like y'all continue to keep me in prayer, y'all. I'm just excited because listen, this was the first episode of the new year. We got so many more episodes to look forward to. I enjoy this thoroughly. I enjoy this all the time because y'all, when I'm talking to y'all, I am talking to myself because it's real out here. It's real out here in these streets. Life be lifing, right? But God is still God. He still sits high and He looks low. There is nothing that is impossible for God. God can do all things. There is nothing that He can't do. And He decides to do it when He wants to do it. Listen, show Him that He can trust you with that thing. Like, continue to show Him, because you just never know when He's going to do it. You never know when the promise is going to be fulfilled. You have no idea when it's going to happen. Y'all, right now I'm talking to myself too. I have no idea when it's going to happen, but guess what? It's happening. It's happening. It's happening. I'm excited for you, and you get excited for me. I'm excited for us. I'm excited for us. But anyway, this is what we do, right? At the glow up is, right? We grow to glow, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's silence that's there, right? We just hold on. We continue to glow. We continue to grow. We continue to take the opportunities that God has given to us to grow, but we glow. We continue to allow our light to shine. But anyways, y'all have a great, great Friday. I love y'all. Happy New Year again. And I'm going to see y'all next Friday around the same time, 6:45. Y'all know how I do, 6:45, 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Your girl is always on here for about 30, 35 minutes at the most. But I love y'all so much. Let's continue to grow, to glow. We got some, y'all, we got some things to look forward to. We got some things that we got to do. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. All right, y'all. I love y'all. Bye.